like adding that to industry recognition is going to be huge. So I'm very excited. Very excited. So
I love this women's empowerment. You know, we have another. I think I told you another first-time director we supported.
Yes, a woman named Scarlett Johansson. Yeah,
She was so cool, calm, collected, and confident.
No,
and nice.
Which is what you want, and just professional, right? You want someone who's professional, who like.
I don't. It's so interesting because you work with so many people, and almost everybody's nice. And then there's Blake, who's just totally different than everyone else.
I'm sorry.
It's like not to say anything bad about her, but she's different.
Hey besties, welcome back to my channel. It's Katie Joy here, and honestly, I had a feeling something big was about to drop. I can only imagine that things inside the Reynolds and Lively household are far from peaceful right now. Ever since that unsealed audio between Clara Yebb and Steve Sarowitz came out, I'm sure Ryan and Blake have been absolutely fuming. See, that audio wasn't at all what they wanted the public to hear. It was meant to make Blake appear as the innocent victim in a toxic work environment, the person wronged by everyone around her. It was supposed to back up her claims that others were stepping forward with complaints about Bellen's behavior and supposed abuse. In short, it was supposed to prove that Blake had been mistreated by Wayfarer and Bellen. But instead of helping her, the audio did the exact opposite. It completely undermined her narrative. The conversation revealed that this entire conflict wasn't about harassment or discrimination at all. What it really exposed was a battle over power, control, and image, especially over how Blake wanted to shape public perception of the film and how the marketing was handled after its release. The backlash that followed was tied to how distant Blake and Bellen seemed on the press tour, her attitude, her behavior, and the tension that everyone could see. Sarowitz even mentioned that, before things escalated to a possible lawsuit, they discussed whether it was worth taking this to court, but ultimately decided not to. All of this lined up perfectly with the moment when Blake and Ryan demanded that Wayfarer issue a public letter taking responsibility for the film's backlash. Around that same time, there was also the issue of Jones' works allegedly handing over data from Jenable's phone, data that reportedly wasn't even hers to access. So, after all of that chaos and negative press, how does Blake react when these headlines start poking holes in her credibility? Well, she does what she usually does. She hits back legally. Her team filed a motion for sanctions, accusing Wayfarer, Wallace, and several others of spoliation, which basically means destroying or hiding evidence. According to Blake's legal team, crucial evidence has mysteriously gone missing. She claims that Wayfarer, Bellen, Jamie Heath, and PR partners like Jed Wallace and Tag used Signal, voice memos, and auto-deleting messages to coordinate a secret digital campaign against her in late 2024. She insists that these individuals used Signal to exchange strategies and talking points on how to bury her in the press. Allegedly, they even shared voice memos mocking her, plotting how to portray her as difficult, and planning ways to control the narrative just as the It Ends With Us controversy was exploding publicly. But here's the wild part. Blake says she knows all of this happened, yet she has no proof whatsoever. None. No screenshots, no metadata, no backup logs, nothing. According to her, those missing Signal messages and voice notes would have proven that these people weren't simply reacting to her behavior, but were actively working to destroy her reputation and career. But again, there's no actual evidence that these messages ever existed. She's basically saying that because Signal's auto-delete feature was turned on, and they didn't disable it once legal trouble was foreseeable, they must have intentionally erased incriminating material. But she can't prove it. All she really has is circumstantial evidence. She knows they use Signal, and that there are some messages from after December 2024, but nothing from the months when she claims the smear campaign actually began. So now, she's asking the court to assume the worst, to believe that the missing Signal threads contain damning evidence, and to punish the defendants accordingly. She reportedly received a few Signal records from Skyline, dated after December 20th, but nothing from before that date. Despite this, she's assuming the earlier ones existed, and that they must have been negative and retaliatory toward her for speaking out about harassment. In other words, Blake is asking the court to rule based on evidence that doesn't exist. She's filed this under Rule 37E of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, which covers spoliation of electronically stored information. And she's not just requesting a small penalty, she's pushing for some of the harshest sanctions possible. Here's what she's demanding. She wants the judge to issue what's called an adverse inference instruction. That means she wants Judge Lyman to tell the jury they can presume that the missing signal messages and voice notes would have supported her version of events, that these deleted chats prove a coordinated PR plot against her. And that's a powerful move because if the judge agrees, jurors are legally allowed to fill in the blanks in her favor. She's essentially asking the judge to instruct the jury that this alleged deleted evidence must have helped her case, even though she can't show that it ever existed. But that's not all. She also wants what's known as an issue of preclusion, meaning she wants the court to bar the defendants from denying that they organized the digital smear campaign. In simpler terms, she's asking the judge to declare it as a fact that the PR team ran this campaign solely because she claims the proof was destroyed. Again, she has no concrete evidence of this, only her belief that it existed. Blake is even trying to use these supposed missing messages to establish New York jurisdiction over Wallace PR, arguing that their alleged concealment proves they acted inside the state. It's a huge stretch, and many legal analysts are calling it a long shot. On top of that, she's demanding that the defendants pay her legal fees for filing this motion. It's a bold and aggressive move, and it's not the first time she's gone this route. Remember, she's already filed sanctions trying to get attorney Brian Friedman disbarred, effectively removing him as the defense's trial attorney. She's also previously filed Rule 47.1 motions, asking to be declared the presumptive winner in the Wayfarer case. And now, she's essentially asking the court to forbid the other side from even mentioning that this digital campaign didn't exist, and to instruct the jury to assume it did, and that all the evidence proving it was intentionally deleted. This all comes just weeks after Ezra told the court they couldn't respond to the motion for judgment on the pleadings because they didn't have enough time, yet somehow, they had plenty of time to file this brand new motion for sanctions. And let's not forget, this is also after Blake's side told the court that they had thousands of pages of evidence that could supposedly amend her complaint and finally prove her case. So, this new motion doesn't even make sense. If she truly has all those documents, then why claim now that the evidence is gone? One moment she's saying, we have tons of proof, and the next she's insisting, we have nothing left. So which one is it? Honestly, it's all over the place. Now, for Blake to actually win these sanctions, she needs to prove several key things. First, that the evidence she's talking about really existed in the first place. Second, that the defendants had a duty to preserve it. Third, that it was lost because they failed to take reasonable steps. Fourth, that the data cannot be replaced by any other means. And finally, the hardest one, that they acted intentionally with the purpose of depriving her of that information. That last part is crucial, and it's also where her case falls apart. Judge Lyman already ruled that simply having an auto-delete feature turned on isn't enough to prove bad faith. You have to show that someone deliberately destroyed the material after being told to preserve it. But here's the problem, Blake never even sent them a preservation notice. She's instead pointing to a November 2023 letter she sent about protections for her return to work. But that letter was about sexual harassment, not retaliation. And it wasn't even a legal demand. It just said she was reserving all rights. That's not the same thing as formally instructing someone to save their communications. Then on August 29, 2025, Judge Lyman had already dealt with this exact same issue, the one about signal chats and its auto-delete feature, which Blake's team now claims is a sanctionable offense. She'd asked the court to force the Wallace defendants to produce signal records or explain what happened to them. But the judge told her flat out no. He said a party can't be compelled to produce documents that don't exist, and that Blake hadn't shown any evidence that those specific chats ever did. He accepted that Signal's auto-delete was enabled, and there was no proof of intentional destruction. That should have ended it right there. But now, here we are again. Her new motion is basically a repackaged version of the same argument, only this time, she filed it right after her credibility took a massive hit following the release of the unsealed audio. It's like clockwork. Every time something in her case falls apart, she files for sanctions. When the Van Zandt lawsuit crumbled, she lashed out at Brian Friedman, issued subpoenas to his law firm, and made a bunch of wild accusations. They even sent out safe harbor letters and accused people of using end-arounds. Every single time something happens that benefits Wayfarer, she fires back with, you guessed it, a sanctions motion. And now we're seeing it again. That audio recording contradicted her original harassment claims, and she knew it was going to be unsealed. Her team clearly wanted to get ahead of the fallout, which is why this new motion popped up so quickly after. They hadn't filed anything in the docket for days, and suddenly, the moment the bad headlines hit, boom, this appears. Now even the entertainment press is beginning to question her motives. The public's perception is shifting, and even mainstream outlets are publishing stories that cast her in a less favorable light. So, this new filing feels like a PR move, an attempt to turn herself back into the victim. She's essentially saying, I can't prove my case because they destroyed the evidence. It sounds sympathetic to the public, but in a courtroom, it falls apart. Because legally, she has to prove they intentionally destroyed something. And there's still no indication that Judge Lyman will issue sanctions for evidence she's never actually proven to exist, especially when the duty to preserve wasn't even in effect until much later. To make things worse, the documents she's citing are all sealed and heavily redacted, meaning the public only gets half the story anyway. Maybe at best, the judge could allow some limited questioning about the missing data, or note that certain signal messages weren't preserved, but those sweeping jury instructions she's demanding? That's highly unlikely. It's honestly wild that she's still pushing this, especially since the court already told her there's no proof whatsoever that anything was intentionally deleted, or that any of the supposed conversations on Signal ever took place. The only evidence she has is her assumption that because the defendants mentioned using Signal, iMessage, and email, there must have been incriminating conversations somewhere. But things can also be discussed verbally over the phone, and in those cases, the only record would be that a call happened, not what was said. And that's not proof of wrongdoing. She's spending a huge amount of time digging through depositions to try and show that these messages once existed, or that the defendants had some duty to turn off auto-delete. She's even leaning heavily on buzzwords like untraceable and no fingerprints, clearly trying to convince the court that there was a deliberate effort to cover something up. In her filing, she writes that their obstructive conduct in this litigation confirms that sanctions are appropriate. She claims that the information she just referenced was recently obtained, only after she overcame substantial discovery hurdles created by the defendants. Then she goes on to say there's no dispute that all defendants use Signal as an informal platform to discuss the case, and that even the court had acknowledged this before. According to her, she first requested these messages back on February 20th, and everyone had agreed in the ESI protocol to manually review communications between parties. But for the next 6 months, they allegedly refused to turn over those messages, forcing her to file multiple motions to compel. And each time, she says, the defendants responded the same way. They can't produce what they don't have, or what never existed. In her words, in response, the Wallace defendants admitted that because they did not disable Signal's auto-delete feature, no responsive communications remain in their possession, custody, or control. The court accepted that explanation, denying her motion right then and there. Judge Lyman even ordered the Wayfarer parties to produce whatever Signal messages they did have by September 8th. But instead of complying, they filed a last-minute request for a 1-week extension, which the court denied. Then, she says, they ignored that order and engaged in self-help, producing just a handful of Signal messages late, and then randomly sending more over the next month with no clear explanation, up until October 9th. Still, none of those communications predate December 20th. Her team argues that this shows a pattern of noncompliance, that the Wayfarer defendants have repeatedly failed to meet their discovery obligations. She even says they haven't produced a complete privilege log for the withheld Signal messages. So, in short, what she's asking the judge to do is punish them simply because they used a platform that doesn't automatically save messages, or because they spoke over the phone, or used voice memos that weren't stored. And she insists that all of this was done intentionally as part of some untraceable smear campaign meant to destroy her reputation. But if you strip away the legal jargon, what she's really saying is this: I can't prove my case. I don't actually have thousands of pages of evidence. I can't amend my complaint to show what happened, so you, the court, need to say they destroyed the proof for me. The irony here is staggering. There was even a motion to compel specifically about messages from after December 20th, and in a letter to the judge, one of her own attorneys, Michael Gottal or Ezra Hudson, acknowledged that their first preservation notice wasn't sent until December 20th, 2024. That very notice is attached to the court docket. It clearly states that as of that date, the parties were required not to delete any messages. So, based on their own previous filings, they were never required to preserve any documents before December 20th, 2024. Up until that date, they had no legal duty to save anything. But now, Blake's team is suddenly trying to twist it, claiming, "Wait, no, it actually started with that November letter where I said I reserve my rights." That's just absurd. It's another example of her trying to gaslight the court, flipping the narrative to say, "It's their fault I can't prove my case." And to the public, she's saying, "Wayfarer destroyed the evidence. That's why I can't prove my claims." But when you strip away all the noise, the truth is simple. Blake can't prove her case. After nearly a year of dragging this through court, filing countless motions, issuing hundreds of subpoenas, and taking dozens of depositions, she still hasn't uncovered a single shred of solid evidence showing that anyone ran a coordinated smear campaign to destroy or retaliate against her. And here's what's even wilder. She's been crying smear campaign since August, even before it allegedly happened. She claimed this supposed PR attack began at the start of August, yet she was already blaming it days before Jed Wallace was even hired. Now she's saying, "Well, the only reason I can't prove it is because they use Signal." So basically, anyone who uses Signal or any messaging app that doesn't automatically save chats is, in her eyes, intentionally hiding evidence. If a judge actually agreed with that logic, it would set a crazy precedent. It would mean anyone using encrypted apps like Signal, iMessage, or voice memos could be accused of wrongdoing just for protecting their privacy. It's ridiculous. This whole thing seems like a PR tactic, an attempt to spin the story, delay the inevitable, and distract from the reality that her case is crumbling. Because soon, when Wayfarer files for summary judgment, they're going to show exactly what their discovery reveals. White heavy checkmark, no evidence of a smear campaign. White heavy checkmark, no proof of retaliation. White heavy checkmark, and a pattern of Blake's team making claims they simply can't back up. So what is she doing? She's trying to get ahead of it. She knows she can't win based on facts, so her only chance now is if the judge believes her claim that the missing evidence was deleted and tells the jury that the defendants destroyed proof that would have supported her story. But here's the problem. There's zero evidence that anything was deleted intentionally. None. Still, her argument basically boils down to, "They can't deny what I'm saying because I said it happened, and the proof was deleted, so you have to take my word for it." It's wild. I've honestly never seen a legal strategy like this before. But then again, this is Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds we're talking about, and with their celebrity power, nothing about this case has been ordinary. So, here's the big takeaway today, besties. Blake and Ryan are essentially admitting, through all their deflection, that they can't win. There's no real evidence of a smear campaign. Their only shot at victory is if the judge hands them this far-fetched sanction that tells the jury, "Hey, they deleted the evidence, so assume she's right." They're asking the court to take her word for it. No proof, no documents, no data, just her claim. You honestly couldn't make this up if you tried. So, what do you all think about this? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to hear your take on it. And of course, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and tap the bell so you never miss the next update. Thanks so much for watching, besties. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.